Hi everyone, today I've got the incredible Jan with us. Jan, could you please introduce yourself and tell us about what brought you to Avalon?
Well, my name is Jan, easy, second name Kusmirek. Polish name, strange name in its own way. Lots of Polish names are, and I suppose you ought to be grateful that it's not a lot worse like my friend Iggy Stravinsky. So Kusmirek is relatively easy. Now in my mid-70s, can't believe it. Life goes on, grows up, etc. And not much else to say about me. I've had a checkered life. I suppose I was a hippie but wore suits. When other people had long hair, I had the shortest possible college boy. And one doesn't want to be the same as everybody else. That's the message of the 60s for sure. So I'm a child of the 60s really. Who are you? Difficult to really always, we're always self-expressing, looking at ourselves, trying to determine. I'm not really that sort of character. I'm quite happy to bumble along in the world and take what occurs. There are many opportunities that you can grab, take hold of, and I think that's what I've done. If you want to know what my character is, let's go aromatherapy. I am involved with aromatherapy. I love aromatherapy. I love fragrance. I love perfume and all the things associated with it. One of the writers, Valerie Werwood, used to attribute personality to essential oils. So if you want to know a bit about me, start looking at Vetiver, which is a very grounding oil, and it's about the earth. I like the earth. I like getting my hands in the earth. That's why I'm so interested in the organic movement from the beginning. I like gardening. Why do I like gardening? Because my grandmother used to get me involved in gardening, and I remember looking out of a window when I was about 5 years old down at the garden, which overnight had seeds planted in it when I'd been fast asleep, and the little packets, you know, the little packets of seed with colours, you push a stick through it and you put it in to mark where you've been. And of course my answer, my question rather, was, how did that happen? My grandmother really told me the fairies came and planted them. Of course, that has been the downfall for the rest of my life. Never got over it. Never got over fairies. It's where one's spirituality comes from different places. So that's that. So if you want to know me, you find Vetiver. But she actually added in Cyprus as well. Now Cyprus, it gets right up into the sky, and that's my other downfall. Being born in June, and a typical butterfly of Gemini, I would prefer to describe myself as a ground-loving moth, able to fly high, mostly at night, following the elusive light of the candle. Now, there's an enigmatic thought.
What first brought you to Avalon?
What first brought me to Avalon? Well, as you've already established by the beginning of this interview, I'm slightly crazy, and that's what happens to a lot of people. I don't know why I ended up in Avalon. I used to have a friend that used to bring me here when he was an area manager. I was a lowly rep, and I just liked it. I cannot tell you why the Galatea restaurant used to be here in the shop that is now occupied by Fragrant Earth. And I used to come there, and there was a guy there that did tarot called Malcolm, and I used to watch him. Not sure I believed in tarot or even whether I do. That's not the point. The fact was that there was a familiarity, something that said I was at ease, which is quite different to any spiritual notion. I wasn't particularly affected by being drawn to the top of the tower. It's always been a long drag up there for me. It's a long way. But I liked the drumming. I liked people that did things which were different. I liked some of the costumes, bearing in mind, as I've already told you previously, Ria, I prefer to wear a suit and to be different. What is it? The land, the shape of the land. I got to know Kathy very well. In fact, I liked the ideas of the form of the land and the femininity that Kathy was then at those days drawing attention to. Do I believe in a goddess? Well, yes, I do, but as a divine energy. Specifically, there are aspects of any divinity, whether masculine or feminine, the manifestation is in quite different terms. So, for me, in Avalon, I suppose it's the Arthurian tradition which I enjoy. Now, the Arthurian tradition generally has a very masculine dimension, but we have to look at the original working, particularly by the Norman French and the French works before Mallory. And we find that, of course, we're looking at what was called the matter of Britain. So the matter of Britain was a question of sovereignty. So I think that very often what is lost is that MGM and Warner Brothers have, shall we say, coloured our view of Arthur rather than looking at the written and oral traditions that follow through. So I look at it this way. Britain, Britannia, is a feminine motherland. Yeah. That's very clear. The matter of Britain comes about at a time of change through the Saxon invasion, and we have the old religion contrasted with the new religion. Along comes the divine child, Arthur. Now that's no different to any different Druidic tradition, or in fact a Christian messianic tradition of the divine child. The divine child comes, and he grows up, goes through the what I call the Merlin period, until he is taken to meet the Lady of the Lake. Now, to me, the Lady of the Lake is the Great Grey Lake. We even have just outside Glastonbury the area called Grey Lake today. And if you read my book on Glastonbury, you'll see that I feature that in the Lady of the Lake. So the Lady of the Lake, what does she do? She actually gives him the sword. We all know that. But is always pictured as coming out of the water with a sword, etc. But the tradition is that it was a sword in a scabbard. And the scabbard, of course, we then come back to the obvious, shall we say, imagery that's given to the male and the female. Sword in the scabbard, sword in the chalice, and things like that. So, being a boy, what does he do? He takes it straight out of out of the scabbard, for example, sort of waves it around, and now he's got a sword and forgets the scabbard. But it's the forgetting of the scabbard, of course, that leads to his death, because the scabbard was produced for the healing. So, for me, the Lady of the Lake is the really important character of Avalon. Not Arthur, not the tradition, because of course he was anyway, Arthur, if you like, was down in Camelot, just down the road, isn't he? In that hill fort that archaeologists claim to be the original Camelot. Here we have then the, shall we say, the interest that I had in the divine feminine as epitomized by a group of people. Yet, on the other side of life, Sophia, the Black Madonna, is actually very much part of traditional Polish thinking. So the Black Madonna, the hidden Madonna, Saint Sophia, again within the Eastern Orthodox Christian tradition, is really, really important. And for me, that wisdom of the divine feminine is in many ways contrasted in the Gaia philosophy, because we had two people. Everybody seems to know James Lovelock and forgotten Lynn Margulis. Now, Lynn Margulis is the key character within the thinking of the philosophy of that Gaia work. In other words, she's saying, look, okay, just as Lovelock did, Daisy World, it may be that the Earth, Gaia, gets rid of human beings. Well, does that really matter? Not from the point of view of the continuity of the Earth, because she would say, well, it all began with bacteria, so it will come again with bacteria. And that's the way that this idea follows through. It's very much in my own way of philosophy, even over COVID. Yeah, you know, I've had an injection. People will say different things. That's not the point. That's my choice. What the point is that one way or another, if it wipes us all out, the Earth will still go on. If I'm unlucky, I'm unlucky. So Glastonbury to me has that fundamental eternity. And that eternity, that energy, is creative, not destructive. And that tends to be more in the way of feminine thought.
So beautiful and so eloquently expressed. Thank you so much for your time, Jan.
Not at all.
And on behalf of everyone who watches this, thank you for sharing your words.
And you notice we didn't get into fragrance at all. Or fragrant earth, because it's not really, that's a commercial interest. It's not the same thing as a spiritual dimension, really. But at least you know why we've got the Lady of the Lake in the shop. Yeah. Because that to me is the key character.